Anyway, first of all, I want to thank all of you for the work you do with the poor and needy. You're an inspiration to the whole church. I want to ask you to refrain from your questions until the very end because we have very limited time. And I need to tell you that I'm a ruptured brain aneurysm survivor. And so I need to read my talk. Okay. When Bob asked me to give this talk, he said that most of the people that his group serve don't have a mental illness. They're just down on their luck. Well, probably more of his clients than he realizes are struggling with mental health issues. They may not be talking to themselves or to invisible strangers, but there's a good chance that the reason that they are unable to keep steady employment is because of a chemical imbalance in their brain. Most people with mental health issues work very hard to appear in the normal range most of the time. Sometimes it takes so much of their energy to look normal that it wears them out, and they decide that it's not worth the effort. They quit their school or their job to stay mainly in the safety of their homes. I am going to give you a brief overview of some of the many mental health disorders. The first one is bipolar disorder, which used to be called manic depressive disorder, and is a chemical disorder of the brain resulting in episodes of mania and depression. Mania is a state of high energy with racing thoughts, sleeplessness, impulsivity, and grandiose ideas. I will address depression in a few minutes. Between episodes, most people with bipolar disorder have relatively normal moods and activity levels, and they may go years or decades without a major episode. For some people with this particular chemical imbalance, managing their symptoms is fairly easy, so they are able to have full-time jobs and a good family life. I know a nephrologist with it. But for about 83% of people with bipolar disorder, it causes severe impairment. No cocktail of medications evens them out completely. No matter how many hospitalizations they go through, no matter how much counseling they have breakthrough manic or depressive episodes, which causes havoc with their lives. Another mood disorder, major depression, involves disturbances in mood, concentration, sleep, activity, and social behavior. Unlike typical emotional experiences of sadness or loss, major depression is a persistent illness that is estimated to affect 17 million Americans, approximately 6.8% of the population. It is the leading cause of disability in the United States. Major depression can occur at any age, and people of all ethnic, racial, and socioeconomic groups can suffer from their illness. People with major depression are usually in physical pain. Two reasons that they cannot work is because they cannot concentrate or make decisions. Left untreated, major depression can lead to suicide. As devastating as this illness can be, it is usually treatable with medication, therapy, and lifestyle changes. Unlike bipolar disorder and major depression, schizophrenia is not a mood disorder, but a thought disorder. It interferes with a person's ability to think clearly, manage emotions, make decisions, and relate to others. Many people with schizophrenia have hallucinations and delusions, which means they can hear, see, smell, feel, or taste things that aren't there, or that they believe things that aren't true. One young man I know was convinced that his mother hit him when he was a teenager. He felt her do it, except she never actually did it. Some people with schizophrenia hear voices or music. One woman told me she couldn't stand The songs that played in her head continually. They were her dad's old country and Western favorites. Besides these symptoms, which are called positive symptoms, because something is added to normal behavior, there are negative symptoms, things missing in people's lives. Most people with schizophrenia have no motivation to accomplish goals or form social relationships. They usually have a flat affect that puts other people off and makes life very difficult. Medication can sometimes stabilize symptoms, but the many facets of this disorder, coupled with the side effects from the medication, make consistent employment almost impossible. Interestingly, about 80% of the people living with schizophrenia have what is called anosognosia, which means they have moderate to severe unawareness of their disorder. They have no way of knowing what they are experiencing is not real. This is what happened with John Nash, the Nobel Prize winner in economics, who was sure that aliens were talking to him. He publicly stated that the ideas that won him the Nobel Prize came in the same way that the idea that aliens were talking to him did. Another debilitating disorder is schizoaffective disorder. This is when a person experiences both the delusions and hallucinations of schizophrenia and the mood swings of bipolar disorder. This is very difficult to treat, but I do know a young man who's working full-time with this disorder. We hope that he can continue to do so. On the other hand, I work with a woman with this diagnosis that couldn't keep herself safe. So the county had to take away her rights and conserve her. Post-traumatic stress disorder can be a response to any traumatic event: military service, abuse, assault, a natural disaster, surviving a violent crime, or even witnessing a crime. People living with this disorder can have nightmares, flashbacks, or intrusive memories. Often people will detach from those close to them and from things that they formerly enjoy, become estranged, and have difficult maintaining loving feelings or intimacy. They can be on edge, irritable, and angry, ever watchful, and overreacting when startled. Even with all the returning male soldiers in a given year, 5.2% American women experience PTSD in comparison to 1.8% of American men. Next, we have the anxiety disorders. In any given year, an average of 19.1% of Americans, that's 48 million people, experience an anxiety disorder. That is almost 1 in 5. They have a phobia or anxiety that causes real physical symptoms. They can have chest pains, heart palpitations, hyperventilation, upset stomach, feelings of being disconnected, and fear of dying. We have a grandson with such anxieties. He started to hyperventilate when we took him to a very small country fair. It took an hour before he could walk in the gates, even though he could see his grandpa and younger sister having a good time inside those gates. There is also obsessive compulsive disorder, where people know that their thoughts and behavior is not logical, but can't stop those thoughts and that behavior. The most common behaviors are compulsive hand washing and door locking. I know a woman whose husband rearranges the trash in their toter all night long on the night before trash pickup day. He owns his own business and is completely rational in all other areas of his life. Of course, on trash pickup day, he can barely function after being awake all night, and his wife has to take up the slack in their office. There are medications that can be prescribed for all the chemically based disorders I have described, but many times the people feel worse on the medications and choose not to take them. Would you take a medication that caused you to gain 60 pounds, made you feel lousy, and prevented you from being able to have sex? That is something to think about. A completely different disorder is borderline personality disorder, which is characterized by abrupt and extreme mood changes, stormy interpersonal relationships, unstable and fluctuating self-image, and self-destructive actions. People with this disorder can lose their temper in an instant, partially because everything is black and white in their minds. There are no medications that work on a consistent basis for this condition. So when you are working with clients, you don't know what invisible hurdles they are facing. You don't know if just meeting with you has caused them to have an upset stomach. You don't know if they hurt all over because of major depression. You don't know if the voices in their head are telling them that they are no good and don't deserve services. You don't know if their thoughts are racing so fast that they have no idea what you are talking about. So a good solution is to work with each person as if that person has a major mental health issue. This is what you can do to help communication. One, use short, clear, direct sentences. Keep the content of what you say simple. Discuss only one topic at a time and give only one direction at a time. Be as concrete as possible. Keep the level of stimulation as low as possible. Stay as calm as possible. Be pleasant and firm, but keep healthy boundaries. Assume that the person will not absorb everything you say to them. You will probably have to repeat your directions. Be patient. If the client seems withdrawn, give them space. And if possible, wait for another day to continue the interview. If possible, take a walk with the client. Walking side by side is a lot less threatening than sitting across from someone and having to look at them. Walking also seems to calm some people's hallucinations. It reduces a lot of people's anxiety. Just having to sit still is really hard for someone who's manic, anxious, or hurts all over because of major depression. A very good technique to use is I statements in a direct, specific manner. These statements put you at the center of the communication. I statements focus on facts without blaming anyone. For example, I need this form completed in order to bring food here. Can you see how different that feels than you need to fill out this form in order to receive food? Another example would be, I don't feel comfortable when people smoke indoors. The focus is on you and your feelings. The client does not feel blamed or intimidated. Everyone has a different reality depending on their life experiences. It is not your job to try to bring your client's reality in line with yours. Not only is it not your job, it is impossible. They are going to believe what they believe. Your job is to work with them so that you can have effective communication. One way to do this is through reflective listening. Sometimes a client will say that all of her employers have treated her unfairly. We are all tempted to say, I'm sure you will find a good one soon. The trouble with saying this is that we are not acknowledging this woman's feelings. In order to validate her feelings, we can say, it must feel horrible to think that all of your employers have treated you unfairly. We are not saying that the statement is right or wrong. We are saying that we understand the feelings behind the statement. If the client says that they think someone is following them because they always see the same red car everywhere they go, you don't have to say if you think it is true or not. You can just say, that must be really scary to think someone is following you. One thing that you might hear often is, everyone at social services hates me. None of them treat me fairly. As much as you want to say that can't be true, the best approach is to say, it must feel horrible to feel hated by so many people. If you can say that, if you can validate your client's feelings of frustration, there is a good chance that he will say, well, there was one worker that I saw last Tuesday that wasn't so bad. To that, you can reply something like, it must feel good that there's one worker that treats you fairly. He might then say, her name is Carol. At this point, you can say, you must feel good that Carol treats you fairly. If you continue to use reflective listening, there is a good chance that your client will realize that he can ask for Carol and work with a worker that doesn't hate him. The same thing goes with the red car. If you validate how scary seeing the red car every place is, there is a good chance that the person will then be able to say that they didn't see the red car this morning. If you continue to use reflective listening, there's a possibility that that person might realize that he's not being followed. Even if he does not realize this, he does realize that you care about him. With this type of communication, the client knows that he's being heard and can hear that you understand his feelings about the matter. Even if you don't discuss further the matter that caused his frustration or fear, you have a basis of rapport. With that basis, you can then move into what you want to discuss. So, to summarize this talk, you are going to be working with many different people. Some of them will have a chemical imbalance in their brain, which we call mental illness. Some of them will have attention deficit disorder. Some of them will be on the autism spectrum, and some will have a cognitive disorder. It doesn't matter what prevents them from providing for themselves and their families. What matters is that you can communicate with them effectively. In order to do so, it's best to be calm and respectful. Use short, simple sentences. Use I statements and reflective listening. Let them know that you can hear the feelings behind their statements and want to validate those feelings. This can help diffuse crisis situations and may prevent them from even occurring. Do not try to change their perception of reality. If they believe that other people can hear their thoughts, they believe that. You can't change their mind. What you can say is how really scary that must be. Then they know that you care about them and care that they are scared. With that basis, you can begin to build a relationship. So after all that, Are there any questions?
Please remember to unmute yourself if you'd like to ask her a question.
Very informative. I guess we don't think of these things when we meet our visitors, and sometimes it's good to have this knowledge. You know, it's basic, but it's sometimes some things that we don't realize, and so it's real helpful to me. Thank you.
My son-in-law has anxieties and phobias, and it took me a while to understand what he has to do just to live. I mean, he's working full time. He works for a company that does yard work, and sometimes he has to get off on a roof, and it's really, really difficult for him, but he does it. And he has phobias about sitting in corners. It's claustrophobic for him. And, you know, even though I've been working in this field for well over 20 years, it took me quite a while to realize just what he's going through. And I'm sure I don't realize it yet.
Mary, I've got one question. Is there something like a handbook that might be available that we could post on for members to use? I mean, I think some of the information is really valuable. And I don't know if maybe you could get a copy of your presentation or something like that, but I think that we work with people all the time, and I can tell you, you know, it would be very helpful. So.
Yeah, this is very informative. I want to present this to my entire conference, and a copy of the script would be really valuable, so they could highlight and keep it with them.
It's easy for me to email Bob the paper. I mean, that's simple.
Mary, I think this just really is a wonderful presentation, and it goes hand in hand with how we try to serve our neighbors, you know, because we really do want to establish caring relationships with them. And I think some of the tips that you had are just wonderful for listening skills that can help us to show that we care.
I got so much information and just kind of insight into so much of what you said. It was very valuable to me.
Thank you.
I would like to thank you for all your information and for all your cues about how to speak with people. I think it's really, really important for us to be able to really communicate well. And I want to also, before you even do it, thank you very much for sending this on to Bob so that he can forward it on to all of us.
You're welcome.
I need to thank my sister for not bringing up any embarrassing moments from my youth or using me as examples of mentally ill.
I'd like to thank her. Now I understand Steve Frank better.
Hey, that's true. That's true. No, Mary, if we mute Bob, can we get into some of those stories?
I have some of my own about her.
Blackmail.
We have schizophrenia in our family.
Yeah.
We're very open about that fact. And my daughter is bipolar. And sometimes she talks very, very fast, and she just is going to do all these things, and she's going to do so much. And one summer we had to go up and take care of her family because she couldn't get out of bed. But most of the time, she's able to work and stay married and have a good life.
Mary, is ADD a symptom of schizophrenia, or is it linked to it in some way?
No, actually, they've decided that ADD and ADHD are on the autism spectrum, but I didn't want to go into that, so I just mentioned it separate from autism.
I mention it because I think our whole family suffers from ADD. As a student, I would be wandering, looking out the window and dreaming of going outside and playing and not paying attention. But I think the whole family suffers from that, but somehow we manage to get through life.
So for one of my sons, they had Michael's cave. Next to the teacher's desk, there was another table with a cloth over it, and he sat under there. So he could try to stay focused. That same son now has 2 master's degrees, one in comparative literature and one in library science.
The nuns usually had my desk right next to theirs, so they assisted me.
Well, Mary, I was on what they called the nuns not needs a lot of love list.
And you still do.
Yeah.
I don't, what happened to me is 7 years ago, I collapsed with a ruptured brain aneurysm. And obviously I'm here. God chose to keep me alive, which is very rare in these instances. But since then, I have absolutely no short-term memory. I cannot know what I just did at all. I don't know where I lay down anything. I also can't draw conclusions. If I'm going to do something with somebody on Saturday and they tell me their grandkids are coming on Saturday, it doesn't occur to me that we're not doing our thing together because their grandkids are coming. It doesn't happen. So now that I have an invisible disability, I am so much more aware of what all the people that I've been working with have. Because in most cases, they look completely normal, but
Yeah.
you know, they're dealing with things that we can't see and we can't understand. The voices in the head thing just drives people absolutely crazy. For one woman, it's constant 24 hours and 24/7. You are evil. You are bad. You are worthless. And they have not found a medication to fix it. She's been in and out of psych wards forever.
Mm.
Mary, thank you. Thank you so much for this valuable information. We're definitely going to share your writing with our members. Thank you so much, and God bless you.
Thank you.
Mary, I do have a question for you because, you know, we do run into neighbors that we serve that they just can't keep a job. And so you see this cycle, you know, you help them, they maybe get a job, they get an apartment, and then 6 months later, they lose it all. And it just continues to happen. Is there any advice on how to work with someone like that? Or do you just kind of help them recognizing that this is going to be a reoccurring thing?
There's a very, very good chance that they're suffering from a major mental illness, except that it's invisible and you don't see it. It could be that just being out in public all day, every day is too much. And they just finally can't do it and they just stay home because they're trying to look normal. It could be that it's a cyclic thing and it's bipolar, and that you get them in a normal period, but then all of a sudden they're in a manic period and they decide that they can write a book and make millions, so why should they be working? Or that they're so depressed they can't get out of bed. I know a man with both degrees in chemistry and biology that suffers from major depression. And his doctor told him to take a walk around the block. He couldn't get to his front door. He couldn't get out of it. Finally, he got to his front door. Then he got to the sidewalk. It took weeks before he had enough strength to walk around the block.
Well, and sometimes you can, drugs and alcohol can complicate things as well too, right? Yeah.
Oh, right. I didn't even go there. Of course it does. Of course it does. And what happens is getting help from behavioral health is so difficult. And the medications for these diseases have so many horrible side effects that it's a lot easier for people to get alcohol and street drugs to feel okay. And another thing that I didn't mention is that nicotine really helps schizophrenics. There's a reason why they're all smoking. It calms down the hallucinations. And we wish it didn't, but that's the truth. It's a chemical imbalance, and nicotine is a chemical.
What a gift to have you join us.
Thank you. Is there any other questions?
Okay. Thank
Okay.
you very much for attending. Sounds like it was a very useful meeting this time, and I'll be sure to forward you on what my sister sends me, and we'll post the video onto our YouTube channel and send all that out to you, all the information.
I'm sorry my camera's not working. We tried it this morning with John and me, and it was perfect. I don't know why it's dark now. Thank you. Bye.
Bye. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That was amazing.
Okay. Thanks one and all.
Bob, thank you for a good meeting. Kathy Dasso, thank you for a good meeting.
We managed to do it without Claudia.
Thanks, everybody, for coming.
Well, thank you. Thank you,
good to see-
Steve. Thank you, Bob.
It's good to see Ron Smith.
He looks very
Yeah.
comfortable in his chair.
He does.
I tried to stay awake, and I did.
Thank you all. Great meeting.
Okay,
God bless you.
goodbye.
Goodbye. Thank you.
Thank you, Karen Glenn.
Thank you, Stephen. We'll see you soon.
Mhm. Bob, that really was a good meeting. That was terrific. I think the body of the meeting itself was dense, and I'm glad we recorded it. I mean, I think we need to, if it's me or Claudia, somebody sit back and just kind of go through. There were so many things that were brought up that were actionable and relevant.
Yeah.
I just thought it was a really good meeting. It was terrific.
Yeah. Good. Thank you. See y'all later.
Bye.
Thanks, guys. Thanks, Steve.